The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Addiction Podcast. Today we have a pretty exciting interview. We are going to be talking with Donnie Anderson, and Donnie Anderson is the director of the Oklahoma State Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Control. This is important because there are things happening in Oklahoma that you need to be aware of. But before we get into our interview, let's have a word from Newman Interventions.
My name is Amy Newman with Newman Intervention and Recovery Solutions. Bobby and I have spent years helping people with getting sober and staying sober. And we know one of the hardest parts about it can be after treatment. That's when real life hits and support can feel very far away. So we created the Sober Support app. It gives you daily check-ins, encouragements, and a structure to help you stay on track. It's simple, private, and designed to keep you connected to recovery every single day. To find the app, go to studio.com and type in Sober Support.
So, Director Donnie Anderson, and I will call you Donnie, but I did say who you are before we went into the interview. But Donnie, thank you for being on the podcast today. Thank you for telling us what's happening in Oklahoma. We obviously don't want it to happen in other states, but what have you seen since marijuana was legalized in Oklahoma?
Well, first off, thank y'all for having me. I'm so proud to be a part of this. First of all, educating the public. That is a huge aspect of my job as well. It's not just, arresting people, but this is very important. But one of probably the hardest things, listen, I've been in public safety for over 34 years, working drugs and violent crimes for majority of my career. What I've dealt with in Oklahoma since I've been the director it has been one of the hardest things I've done in my career, specifically with dealing with medical marijuana in the state of Oklahoma.
Hello, I'm Joni Siegel, the host of the Addiction Podcast. In 2022, over 100,000 people died from drug and alcohol abuse, and that number is growing daily. Fentanyl poisoning, pot, cocaine, heroin, and even psychedelics and alcohol all contribute to this crisis, while we're bombarded with promotions from thousands of rehabs. Newborns are born addicted, and the majority of homeless people struggle with drug addiction. Drug dealers exploit online resources to sell to teens, and antidepressant use is spiraling out of control. This podcast features brutally honest guest interviews revealing harsh realities and offering hope and solutions through their stories. We don't sugarcoat anything. Guests speak raw and real. More importantly, you'll find inspiration to understand, overcome, and achieve recovery, whether for yourself or to help others, some within your own family, many among your friends or associates. Whether you're seeking help or just a glimmer of hope, our podcast equips you with the latest insights to confront this generational battle. Many listeners tell us they want to join the fight, but do not have the time or money to act, lobby, or just help. If that's you, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and see how you can help.
And it has become a very, very big deal in the not just in the state of Oklahoma, but in the United States. If anyone has heard much about marijuana on the national level, you've heard about Oklahoma, and you should have heard what you shouldn't do in your state by looking at what has happened in Oklahoma. And I'll tell you what we've seen. So I came into the Bureau in 2020 as the director, but in 2018 was when marijuana was voted on to become medical in the state of Oklahoma. But it was the law was actually written by the industry. Therefore, when you say it's medical, it's really recreational. We have the most liberal marijuana laws in the nation. Now it's tightened up a little bit since then. But whenever I came into the Bureau in 2020, I knew there was a problem because I've been doing this for a while. I immediately started looking at this, and our agency started looking at this. And we realized pretty quick that we had a significant problem.
Mm.
I'm a numbers guy, so I follow numbers really, really closely. And what I seen was a huge influx in foreign nationals. And what's happened in Oklahoma, we have actually been the segue of the big black market marijuana across the US. But what that's also done is opened the door for transnational criminal organizations to come in, not just to Oklahoma, but into the US. And further, what they're doing across the US and across the world, which is just this very thing, starting off with marijuana. And you'll hear from the advocates and the propaganda that I'm just a knuckle dragging cop who doesn't like marijuana. Has nothing to do with that. I'm a
And
no.
Donnie, sorry, I told you I'd interrupt you if I need to. We've talked to people. We talked to a doctor, and we've talked to other people who are from Colorado, and they talk about what's happened to Colorado with the legalization of marijuana. But truthfully, truth be told, Donnie, this is the first I'm hearing about what's going on in Oklahoma. So, and I did watch a little bit of when you testified at Congress, and yeah. Anyway, hadn't heard much about what's happening in Oklahoma.
Well, it is a transnational. I mean, it is a transnational criminal organization tied directly to the CCP, the Communist Party of China, which we have evidence to prove that not only do they know about it, they support what's going on in the U.S. And the bigger picture. Here's the bigger picture. You got to stop and think about, where do all the precursors come from to manufacture methamphetamine and fentanyl? Well, they come from China.
Yep.
So what's happened is the cartels have embedded themselves with the Chinese transnationals. Listen, everyone knows nothing comes in and out of China that the Chinese government doesn't know about.
Right.
The Chinese government is very much aware that they're sending this poison to the cartels, because it is just the chemicals alone is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Right.
Marijuana business in Oklahoma alone is over $150 billion industry in Oklahoma alone.
Wow.
But what's it doing? You say, what is it doing? Just look at Oklahoma. If you look at, well, this is what we know number-wise as far as statistically, by the Department of Mental Health in Oklahoma. In 2021, 182,000 Oklahomans received mental health and substance abuse services. But there was a 700 to 950,000 Oklahomans that didn't get service. There was nothing to give them. We were just that flooded. Then you go back to right now, and this is the most recent numbers we got in 2023. And I'm gonna give you some of the treatment numbers just so you have an idea. Since 2018, when we've legalized the recreational, or not recreational, well, it is recreational, but medical marijuana. So in 2023, we had 29,573 admissions for drug addiction treatment in Oklahoma. 1,873 was for heroin, 4,341 for opioids, a little over 1,500 for cocaine, and cocaine's made a huge comeback. 8,568 for methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is still the big killer in Oklahoma. But we had 13,286 people went into treatment for marijuana. And you will hear marijuana is not addictive. That is the biggest crock I've ever heard of in my life.
You have total agreement on this end. We know it's a gateway drug, and we know it's addicting, and we know that it causes hallucinations and overdoses and everything else, in spite of what people want you to think.
Our infants who were treated by the Poison Control Center increased by over 1,000%. That's asinine. Now that's not, that's from 0 to 5. That's not a 0 to 5-year-old, rolling up a joint smoking it. That's bad parenting.
Yep.
But once again, that just falls in line with what you see and what's going on. But just to think, over 13,000 people sought treatment in 2023 for marijuana. What's it doing to our youth? What are we telling our youth? What do we know? And I'm talking about science, not propaganda. What do we know that marijuana does to the brain of our youth?
Mm-hmm.
It's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, you women out there, you can understand what I'm fixing to tell you. Really, what it affects more than anything is the young boy, the teenage boy, because number one, it affects the frontal lobe of your brain, the reasoning. That's our reasoning. Now, when we're teenagers, we're dumb enough. We don't need any help. And it's going to affect our frontal lobe, our reasoning, which isn't developed till we're 23 or older. Usually, that's what's happening. We're creating a dumber society. I hate to say that, but we absolutely are. And listen, we're 50th in education as it is. We don't need any help to get any lower. Can't get much lower. But marijuana is not the answer.
Right.
And I'm telling you, Joni, the other things that we've seen is the huge uptick in the violent crimes. Now I'm talking about execution-style homicides in Oklahoma. That's what
Wow.
our uptick, and one of the most deplorable crimes that we investigate as a drug enforcement agency is human trafficking and sex trafficking. The
Mm.
uptick in our sex trafficking has went through the roof. We're seeing people smuggled into the U.S. for the specific reason. The same people understand that the smuggle drugs and that sell drugs are the same people that are selling people. It's the exact same people. And you say, why do they do that? Well, I can only sell a kilo of methamphetamine or fentanyl one time, but I can sell that person 8, 9, 10 times a day. It's just another revenue source. But
I hate to say it, it's a commodity. I mean, it sounds horrible to say that, but that's the truth.
it is, but
It's a commodity.
it's so deplorable. And some of these young women and boys, it's not just women, it's boys too, very young. But one of the trends that we are seeing now that I've never seen in my career is seniors that are being trafficked.
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast, or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We appreciate you listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. We don't do this podcast because we are former addicts. We don't do this podcast because we have loved ones who have suffered from addiction. We do this podcast because we feel that addiction is one of the biggest problems facing the world today, and that no matter who you are, no matter your religion, no matter your income status, no matter your race, no matter anything about you, addiction affects you. Many listeners tell us they want to join the fight, but do not have the time or money to act, lobby, or just help. If that's you, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and see how you can help.
I know. It's hard to fathom, but there's just so much that goes on with this, and I'm telling you, this is really, I mean, Oklahoma has taken a huge step back.
Mhm.
I've advocated all over the U.S. I go to places all the time and talk. I try to educate anyone I can, anyone that will listen. Mississippi's asked me to talk to them, their governor. I've talked to them. I went to Mississippi. I went to other places to try. If you're going to do something, just look at Oklahoma and don't do it.
Mm.
Learn from what's happened here, because it's not just, you know, and Oklahoma was targeted by the industry. Understand that, because one, we're a poor state, very poor state, um, not really educated. Has a lot to do with it, and this is coming from the people from the industry that was saying why they targeted Oklahoma,
Mm.
because they try to get their hooks in and then go from there across the U.S. Well, that's why Oklahoma was targeted, and it's very, very successful at it. I will tell you though, the tide's turning in Oklahoma. Whenever I came into the bureau, we had a little over probably 8,500 grows in the state of Oklahoma. When I talk about grows, I wish I had some pictures to show you. These are massive grows. I'm talking about producing hundreds of thousands of marijuana plants at a time, over acres and acres and acres on indoor grows and outdoor.
Well, let me just say, Donnie, I'm going to cut you off for 1 second. Anybody listening, if you want to see these pictures, you can go to YouTube and you can look for Donnie Anderson. Is it Senate? Who were you talking to?
Congress.
Okay, Donnie Anderson Congress, and you can find his testimony and you can see more pictures than you want to see, but they're there.
And if you have the time, you can even go to Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Facebook page, because everything we do, it's put on social media, or a majority of it with the marijuana is on social media, and you will see just raid after raid in some of these pictures, and it's like stepping into a third world country when you see these things. So one of our advocates who has been working the sex trafficking with us, a non-government agency. She spent time in Africa, in a third world country, and whenever she went to one of these groves, she said, "Oh," I mean, she got emotional. She said,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, it's like stepping back into Africa."
Yeah.
Into a third world country, but that's what it's like here.
Can you say that one more time? The Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Facebook. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to make sure people listening got it. Okay. Have there been changes since you talked to Congress?
So, and there's still things going on, even in DC. I actually just got an email today. The president's czar asked if I would come and brief them in early December. Uh, we're looking at that. I'll probably be going back to brief the president's czar in reference to what's going on, and it'll be specifically about the marijuana and what's happening national security wise here in Oklahoma.
Good.
Not related, but I'll be going back probably the first week of December to do that. And our federal partners have been really good to help
Un-
as well.
Understood. And you said the tide was turning, and I cut you off. So how are you seeing that? How are you seeing the tide turning?
So when we went from 8,500, we're down now to right around 1,500.
Okay.
So that's
Wow.
such a
Yeah.
significant drop. But when I say that, um, from 20 uh, from 2023 to 2024 or 24 March of 24 to March of 25, just recently,
Mhm.
um, when we have a seed to sell tracking, so we know who reports how many plants are grown. So there's a little over 87 million plants grown in Oklahoma. Now remember, that's who's tracking it.
That's
There's
who's
more,
reporting.
yes, but we only and you can get approximately 1 pound per plant. So in theory, or over 80 or around 80 million plants, just in theory, we only sold 1.6 million pounds in a dispensary. So that's telling you there's over 80 million pounds of marijuana that's been diverted to the black market.
Yep.
That's asinine. That's over $100 billion.
So people could go, oh well, it's Oklahoma's problem, but guess what? It's not because it's going all over the country.
Yeah, so we don't have enough people in Oklahoma to smoke that much weed. So it's
Right.
not enough. Yeah, Oklahoma is the problem, but it's not just Oklahoma's problem.
It,
Actually, the majority of what we grow goes to the east and the west coast, and
yep.
look, California's got their own, but
Yep.
we send it there as well. But we're just sending it to the east coast every day.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you're doing the right things to shut it down. And it also, for anybody listening, it needs to be a wake up call. It was for me, Donnie. Like I say, I know about Colorado. We've had people on the podcast talking about Colorado. We've had Amy Ronshausen from Drug Free America here in Florida because she knows everything there is to know about marijuana and why it should never be legalized. But I had no idea the situation that you have in Oklahoma. Why do you think it's in Oklahoma? Because you're not a border state.
So, well, just until recently, actually, everybody was a border state because we had open borders.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
But really, what happened? This is what happened. It was really what you could actually call a perfect storm. So Oklahoma, whenever they passed this law, you also have to understand Oklahoma is very rural, not a lot of resources, not a lot of public safety, not a lot of law enforcement. Very cheap to live, very cheap land. So if you're wanting to have these massive production or grows with a lot of agricultural land, this is the place to come to. Now our land is shot through the roof. Our property taxes shot through the roof because of all this, because these Chinese nationals were coming in and paying 5, 6, 7 times the market value in cash money just so they can buy up all this land. Also understand what's concerning about that. These are Chinese nationals who have close ties and admitted ties to the CCP.
Right.
That is what is very concerning, and where some of this stuff is located by some of our military installations. And Oklahoma has a lot of military installations, some very important military installations that could affect national security in the U.S.
Wow. So what's next? You said you're gonna go to DC and you're gonna talk to Congress again. Are there ways that we can help you? Are there, things that we should be telling people to do to help with a situation like this besides not legalizing it in the first place, which is an ongoing battle in Florida?
Listen, it is an education. We have to do better at educating the public, because listen. There's so much money in this, involved in this, in the illicit part of this. That's why you're seeing such a strong push and all this funding to get this passed, because there's a lot of money involved in this.
Yep.
But I will tell you, you think about the money involved in that, the money that we're going to spend in the future generations to clean this up. I don't know that we can put a number on it, and because I don't know that you have a real number on a human life, because I don't think there is such a thing. But that's what we're going to be dealing with in the future, and we don't even know. We haven't even touched the tip of what this is going to look like. We have no idea, and what's going to happen is going to be my grandkids, your grandkids, and their kids who are really going to be affected by this thing. So we're really not leaving this better than we found it, regardless of what anyone says.
I think I think that message is about as strong as we can get. You know, people who are listening, if you think this is not going to affect you, you need to get your head out of the area where the sun doesn't shine, and you need to start looking around, and you need to get yourself educated. You know, like I say, if you go to YouTube and you look up Donnie Anderson Congress, you can hear his talk, and it's very, very hard hitting. Or go to the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs Facebook page and get yourself educated. And if your legislature is considering legalizing marijuana, tell them they need to get educated, because you don't want it legalized in your state. You really don't. There you go.
You can't get no more plainer than that. But it is a problem, and it's going to continue being a problem. Because, and listen, we are a recreational nation as it is.
Yeah.
And when you talk about addiction, and and this is another thing, we put such a stigma on addiction.
Yep.
What people better realize, there's no racial barrier. Regardless of what someone tells you, this affects anyone and everyone. I'm the director of a state agency that enforces drugs. My family has been affected. I came from that generation. I broke the generational gap. I come from a drug-induced and a chemical-induced family. So it's generational, and will affect many generations. And I really am concerned what this is going to do for many even after I'm long gone, off the face of the earth, what this is going to do for many generations. It's a shame that I have to sit here and think about, man, it's going to affect so many generations. This footprint that we're leaving here right now, I don't think it's a good one.
Yep. Donnie, thank you so much for fighting this fight on our behalf. And anybody listening, figure out what you can do to help. Because, as I say, you can sit there and say it doesn't affect you, but it does. And if it doesn't affect you, it'll affect your kids and your grandkids, and none of us want that. Donnie, you are a rock star in my book, and I know you're a government employee, and maybe you don't feel like a rock star, but you're fighting the good fight, and I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the podcast today. And if you would be so kind to let us know whatever you can after you go to DC.
I will do that. And thank you so much for having me. And thank y'all so much for educating the public.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening. Really take note. Go to YouTube, look up congressional hearing, Donnie Anderson, and look at what he has to say. It's a bit scary. And I'm not trying to be really doom and gloom, because frankly, today is Thanksgiving, and there's a lot for us to be thankful for. But what we need to be aware of is that this whole issue of legalizing marijuana is getting out of hand. It's already out of hand, especially in states like Oklahoma. And if it's not legal in your state, go to your legislature and make sure they never, ever, ever legalize it. We'll be back with another interview next week.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.